we're going to be talking about what we wished we'd known before we joined recruitment. Roni, kick us off.
I think probably the most obvious one is how hard it is.
Yes.
And I mean, it is a brilliant job, obviously, all the good things are there, but I don't think I realised just how hard it was going into recruitment. Obviously, there's so many different aspects to it, which I suppose is another point as well. I didn't really realise how much there was to it. I thought, you're calling your candidates, you're calling your clients, but it's not just that, because you're also working with candidates to edit their CVs, you're writing job ads, you're keeping up to date with your industry and the market that you're in, 100%. You're going out on visits. There's just so many different aspects to the role. And I think, some people do think it's just like a call centre role, you're coming in, phone. And while there's a lot of call handling, it also is loads of admin and other bits and bobs, and obviously all the marketing bits and bobs that we've got to do as well. So I think I didn't realise, A, how hard it was, and B, how much there was to it.
No, I agree. I think especially as the whole sort of 360 recruitment role, it's crazy, because recruitment is obviously quite often very glamorized, as in it's going to be like client dinners and going out and going to all different events and stuff, and obviously there is a huge part of that as well, but we have to do a lot of graft.
We do,
and
really
it's do. It's not a case of that's a bad thing, because it's really, you kind of get out of it what you put in. So if you're going to put in a lot, you're going to get a lot out of it, which is great. But I think, and obviously that, and then looking at how much resilience is probably needed is a lot, because we deal with rejection on a day-to-day, and rejection, objection, all of it is a lot from both client and candidate perspective. So I think it wouldn't have put me off.
No,
but I think just knowing how often that would happen, because it is, I'd say we're more often rejected, especially by clients, maybe not so much by candidates, but especially by clients. We are more often rejected, and it's still being like, okay, no worries.
Keeping that smile.
Can I call you back in a few months? Like, still smiling, and then being like, I'm going to pick up the phone, I'm going to crack on. And I think that's testament to what we've spoken about before in like previous episodes, where it really helps that all of us are doing it around each other.
Definitely.
Because we can kind of vibe off each other. And that does really help.
Yeah, and I think off the back of your point of resilience, I wish I knew how much of an emotional roller coaster it actually was. There will be those days in which we've mentioned before, that you do just want to bash your head against the wall, or you get home and you want to sit in your car for a bit to unwind.
In silence, literally with the ears ringing.
It really can be up and down. And I think I wish I'd known that, so I knew that I wasn't going crazy, because, when I started, my first few days were really exciting, and then, you hit your first roadblock and you think, oh no, this is the worst thing ever, like, why has this happened? And then I think if I'd known that I would feel like that I would feel ups and downs constantly, then I wouldn't be doubting my sanity, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And doubting your sanity, and I did the same thing, and also was kind of like, am I right for this job? Am I good at this job? Can I do it? And it kind of, it did really make me think, to start with, like you say. I remember sitting in the car like, I feel a bit like I'm hitting my head against the wall. I don't know what I'm doing. Am I in over my head? And I think if I'd known that feeling all of that was normal, because then when I've spoke to everyone else in the office and other recruiters and everything, everyone's like, that's normal. Like, people who have been in it for 15 years are still like, sometimes they get in their car and they're like, this isn't right for me. But it is, I suppose that is just the recruitment roller coaster. And I think it's knowing that would have potentially sort of helped deal with it. But
and I think knowing as well the things that trigger those responses in us. So for example, I suppose how much people lie. I don't think I realised, obviously people lie, it's human nature, but I don't think I realised how much people lie on their CVs, or even on the phone to recruiters, or sometimes even in interviews.
Do you think candidates or clients lie more?
Oh, do you know what? I do think it would be candidates. I do think. And obviously, in some ways you can understand it. Obviously, they want to get their dream job, and they may feel like they don't have the right qualifications for it. So, they're going to fudge things a little bit on their CV. But I do think, it really did surprise me, or, when people on their CV, they job hop quite a lot. So they're in a job for 2 months, move on, 1
Yeah.
month, move on, 3 months. And they will just put in brackets next to all of them, fixed term contracts.
Yeah, and it's like, was it?
Yeah, and sometimes you'll see a company that don't actually do fixed term contracts. They're all permanent roles.
Yeah.
And you think, you're lying.
Yeah.
You're lying to me.
And I don't have a problem with it if there's a reason.
Yeah.
But it's also like we're not like we are intelligent, we can tell, and even if we weren't intelligent, we have multiple resources to find out whether you're telling the truth or not. And it's like just don't do it.
Yeah. And I think when I was new, I didn't really have that understanding that people would lie a lot. So I think my sort of truth detector wasn't on, and I would take everything as it was given to me. So if a candidate told me, you know, they weren't coming to their interview because their grandma died, I believed them.
Yeah.
And then when you get to the point where 10 grandmas are dying a day, you think, okay, I understand now.
There's not a sudden absolute increase in mortality.
A new pandemic. All the grandmas are
literally
dying.
The grandmas are gone. No, and I think that's the thing, and it's like, but you do, to start with, you do trust your gut. Yeah. And I think we've been in it about the same time, like 5-6 months.
Yeah.
And I think it's even now I look back on the early days, I say the early days, like it was years ago, and I'm still like, oh, you were so naive.
Yes.
Like, because now people say things and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, you can see through it. You do get to the point where you can see through it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. The other one that I sort of wish I'd known a bit more about was how difficult the sales aspect of things would be, sort of like ringing up new clients and really sort of pitching yourselves to them. I mean, as I've become a bit more confident as a consultant, the thought of it has got a lot better. Yeah. But as a newbie, I was like, oh, I can't ring up someone and be like, I've got a candidate for you. And I remember watching some of the other guys and I was like, how does that come across so easy to you? Which is just, I don't know, and I think it's because it's not something that would come naturally to me. I'm not a natural born salesperson, but then a lot of the advice that we've been given is you don't see it as sales, it's just another conversation.
Exactly.
And so I think if someone, before I joined recruitment, if someone had been like, look, obviously you are going to have to go out and get clients, but it's not sales, it's not hard-hitting sales, you're just going out and having a conversation with people. Yeah. And that would be, if I was ever in the position where I was training new recruiters, that is what I'd say to them. Because that really puts my mind at ease, because I'm like, okay, I can chat to anyone, like, chatting's fine.
And I mean, speaking of difficult calls, I think I would also wish that I'd known or was warned about how difficult it can be to tell a candidate they haven't got the job. Yeah. That, I think the first call I did where I had to tell one of my candidates they didn't get the job, it's heartbreaking, you feel awful, you hear their disappointment, it really is. You know, I think I wish I'd known how difficult that was going to be.
And then you feel the tears at the back of your eyes and you're like, I can't cry now.
I'm supposed to be the strong one here.
I'm telling them the news and you feel awful, don't you?
Yeah, it really is. In my head, obviously it is, you know that it's a hard thing, you know, for someone to not get the job, but you don't realise all the emotions involved until you're on the other side of the call 100%. And you break the news to them and you hear their response. It really, really is difficult. And I don't think that is something that will ever get easier, to be honest.
No, but I think, like you say, if that would have been sort of like pre-warned, it's another thing you can sort of think about in your head. But I think on the flip side of that, if someone had said, when you tell someone they've got a job, you're going to feel incredible.
Yes.
That would have been like, I wouldn't have believed people. I'd have been like, no, that's the job. Obviously, it's recruitment. But it is when you ring someone up and you're like, you've got the job, and they're like,
such a good
I can't believe it, and then you get all high pitched and loud
down the phone to each other, like,
and your hands are flapping. We're doing a podcast, you can't see my hands flapping, but like, and like the excitement and the feeling that you get, and like the buzz that you get
so
off
rewarding. It really is.
It's incredible, and I think that for me would. I mean, I know we talk about the emotional roller coaster of recruitment, but that high like washes away all the lows, because when you do it and then it's incredible.
And I think as well how thankful the candidates are. Obviously they have that initial reaction when they're really excited, and then sometimes they'll send a follow-up email or they'll text you and say, just want to say I'm so grateful, thank you so much. Or once they've started the job, they're like, this is perfect, like, you know, I wouldn't have known if I'd just seen the job ad or something like that. You know, now I'm here, you have matched that really well, and they're just really grateful for it.
Definitely. So, or, you know, when they leave a review, when you haven't even had to ask them and they leave a review and they're like, I'm so grateful, and I'm living my best life in my new job, and you're like, yes. No, that bit is really nice.
It really, really is. And I think there's personal things as well for us that I think we didn't realise, would come off the back of it. So for me, I don't know if it's the same for you, but I feel like my confidence has really, really increased.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it is something that, I mean, obviously we had levels of confidence coming into recruitment, but I think now it comes a lot more naturally. Definitely. To be able to just like chat to people, to be more inquisitive as well. I've noticed I'm a lot more inquisitive and asking different questions, and I'm not so afraid to ask the awkward questions.
Yes.
That was something that to start with, I was like, oh, okay, they've said that they felt a bit ill. I don't want to ask them why.
Yeah.
And now it's like, well, why were you? And it's not big, and it doesn't sort of reside as an awkward thing with me anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that is a good side of it, the personal development kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely develops your people skills as well, just in general. I think my empathy is a little bit better. My understanding of people and what they want is a lot better. And I think just in general, my conversation skills are a lot better.
Yes.
And, there are some candidates who you speak to who is a little bit hard to get them talking and get some information out of it. But, over time since being in recruitment, I now know the right sort of things to ask to probe them to get to the point where they do feel like they can just spill their guts and talk to you like you're a friend.
And when you do unlock that with a candidate, especially when it's a candidate that's been a bit quieter to start with or a bit closed, as soon as you sort of like pick away and ask that right question, and then they're like blah, 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 they're telling you their life story, and you're like, yes, that's another thing. And it's like if someone had turned around to us before we joined and been like, you're going to be talking to people that are a bit shy on the phone or a bit reserved, and you're going to unlock the secrets of their life, you would have been like, no, I'm not. Like, I'm just going to get people a job. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
So that bit is incredible. I think going sort of back to the candidate side of things, I know we've touched on it before about a great CV doesn't necessarily mean a great candidate, because I think it's quite, when you join, obviously the first things that we're taught are going through CVs, red flags in CVs. Obviously we discussed it in previous episodes, and I think looking at the CVs from face value, you might think that's my person, but then you speak to them on the phone and you're like, you're really not my person.
Yeah. It's so disappointing when that happens, though, isn't it? Because you do think that the CV is the be-all, end-all, but it's not. And I think on the other side of the spectrum, you might see a CV that's not got much on it and it doesn't look brilliant, but something in you says, call them anyway. And then they pick up and they're really bubbly and vibrant, and they can talk to you about their job for hours, and you think, where was that on your CV?
It's not shown. And that's the thing. And I think that links back nicely to what you were saying to start with about the different aspects of the role. Is one of them is telling people, like, your CV is dead.
Yeah.
Like, you need to sort it out. Yeah. But we'll find it a lot with salespeople, especially. Like, they're not CV writers, they're salespeople.
Exactly.
And I think that's where sort of our role does link into it nicely, because obviously that is a big part of our job, is sort of helping them to develop those CVs. So
and I think as well, I just wish I knew how fast paced it was, and how, so you see that CV, you call them up, you're like, oh, they're actually a really good candidate. Right, now I need to help them really quickly update that CV. I need to get it across to the client. I need to make sure that we're getting them in for an interview ASAP. It's not just, oh wow, that was a good candidate, right, let's leave them there for a while. It's like, no, you need to take action straight away. There's been so many opportunities when I was new that I'd sort of missed the boat with a really good candidate because I left it a little bit too long and they got snapped up somewhere else. So I think I wish I'd known how you just do need to take instant action on anything
and not just sit on it. And especially with how fluctuating the candidate market is at the moment, and how quickly jobs are going, if we're sitting there like, oh no, I'll call them later. I think to start with, I was doing that maybe out of nerves a little bit as well. But then once you realise sort of how fast paced it needs to be, I mean, we go to jobs, don't we, and then we'll try and shortlist within 48 hours. And get interviews booked, and it's like, that's not a lot of time, and but you have to turn it around that quickly to sort of get the candidates out there. So
and I think as well, something I wish I knew was that you do want it to be fast paced, but there sometimes are obstacles that get in the way of that, and you expect, okay, right, now I've learned that it's fast paced, so let me really quickly get on the phone to the client and get this candidate booked in for interview. Well, what I'm learning now is sometimes some clients don't want to talk on the phone. They say, "Oh, send me an email."
Yeah.
And then, so I didn't realize, I guess, how much you need to chase people. You have to chase candidates. You have to chase clients. You really have to be on top of it. Otherwise, you won't be moving as fast as you need to.
Definitely.
And you won't get people in the jobs that they should be in.
Yeah, and I think I didn't realise either before I joined, like, how persistent you'd need to be. I know we spoke about resilience, but persistence, as you said about clients, trying to get in face to face in front of a client is difficult.
It can be
and
really
you have to be persistent and be like, I want to come to your company because I want to understand about you and get to know you and your company, and make sure that we're putting the right kind of people in there for you, because otherwise it's not beneficial either way. And I think that links sort of nicely into managing time expectations and how we have to really sort of lay out when we're planning to achieve things by, and when we're planning to send candidates across by, both to a candidate and a client perspective. Because I think it's really important that we say to a candidate, look, you should be expecting to be interviewed in X amount of days and get feedback in X amount of time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that ties nicely in with my final point, really, that I think it's so important going into recruitment that your own expectations are managed. So you're talking about how the client's expectations need to be managed, but I think that is the key, really, to everything that we've discussed. You just need to have those open, honest conversations with your soon-to-be colleagues, your soon-to-be director or manager, before you go in. Say, right, what do I need to know before starting recruitment? What do I need to know? How can I mentally prepare?
And make sure you ask for the good, the bad, the ugly.
Yes, definitely.
Like you say, speaking to your colleagues is a great thing. I mean, we've got like LinkedIn, Facebook, like you can message anyone.
Yeah,
I'd say if we were going to have someone new join us and they messaged us, like, tell us everything, we'd be like, hey, you need to go into it with a full open mindset.
Definitely.
And then you'll absolutely love it.
Yeah. And that is it. That is the key at the end of the day. So that brings us to the end of this week's episode. Next week, we will be looking at more of a client focus. So we'll be discussing how to make your role more appealing.